can more about how we can optimize and re-engineer processes prior to automating them. So we're delighted to have with us Eric Gillette. Eric's going to introduce himself in a minute, but suffice for those of you that don't know Eric, he's very well known in the automation community, and especially for this focus on business benefits rather than just technical wizardry. We all love the wizardry, but at the end of the day, we've got to make the business some benefits from it too. So whatever our role is in automation, I'm sure that tonight's presentation there's going to be takeaways for us personally. So Eric, over to you.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll share my screen and I'll try to share the sound as well because I brought you a video clip. Let me do this. Here we go. So just to start, and hello everybody, particularly hello Jack. You were the first presenter. I'm the second to the chapter. Yeah, and as is everything working, by the way, Graham, with the visual and the audio?
Yeah, we can hear you and we're seeing your screen, Eric.
Okay, good. And as Graham said, yeah, I like to focus on like topics that are a bit more on the business side, and I think it's a good complement for community discussions. At least I hope people think so too, where like we have a lot of technical capabilities, but sometimes it's also the so what. How does it help the business? How do you develop a business case, or how do you develop a bigger impact as a developer as well? And maybe just a short introduction. You may pick up from my accent that I'm from the Netherlands, and I worked 25 years in corporate roles, including leading the process improvement function at like the two large Swiss banks, Credit Suisse and UBS. I was also the RPA lead at EssilorLuxottica, better known as Ray-Ban. And then since about 4 years, we started Boundaryless. Now Boundaryless is of course, like I don't want to spend too much time on it, but it's like we do RPA delivery. And you know, we have been growing. We're about 40 people today. Actually, we're literally 40 people today. And yeah, we do analytics. We do, of course, RPA, and that RPA side, as you can imagine, with the UiPath product range, is evolving into all kinds of additional topics like process mining and yeah, artificial intelligence related subjects as well. And our claim to fame is that we have a lot of experts, including 4 current MVPs and also 1 former MVP. Florent Salandres is probably the Uber MVP. He was, I think, the first person to get that nomination. And it gives us also a great connectivity with the UiPath, let's say, business, but we're also very keen on maintaining relationships with the UiPath community. And several of our team members are very active community members or community leads as well. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to try to like, let's say it's an executive course on process redesign in 1 hour, and I hope that that you find that an hour that's well invested, and please let me know afterwards. I think the agenda was already communicated on the invite, so I don't want to spend too much time on going through it. You see there's a structure, and the reason why it is important to think about process redesign as part of your automation is probably best kept just in a few quotes. The first one is from Bill Gates, right? And again, I don't want to read out the slides, but you can read for yourself. And the last quote is what I always say myself. If you're automating without considering process improvements, you're missing a trick, right? And likewise, we also see people that are doing process improvements without considering all this intelligent automation capabilities that you bring. You're also missing a trick. And there's a lot of opportunity, I think, for these disciplines combined to make a bigger impact. This is a high-level, very simplistic delivery roadmap that hopefully you recognize. It's not, the intention is not to be complete or to list every possible deliverables. We work with clients that use something like this, and we work with clients that have a manual of 30 pages for this. But it's, in the end, after you looked at the process and before you start developing, it's good to think about, hey, what is actually the purpose of this process that I'm automating, and can we do it smarter, right? Let's not just automate what we do today, but let's think about, is there a smarter way that we can help with as part of the digitization that is happening. And then I promised to introduce you to the concept of lean, which was popularized by the car maker Toyota. And what they took as a starting point, does the customer care or does the customer not care? Right? About if you think about a process, a process has different process steps. So they would ask that question, and for every process step, is the customer actually, would the customer be willing to pay for this or not? And it's a bit oversimplified, because sometimes also from a business perspective, there are steps you need to take to ensure compliance. But the idea is to basically reduce anything that comes into the way of making the customer happy in terms of speed, in terms of value. And if you look at these 5 outcomes, you probably recognize that there's a huge overlap with the benefits from an RPA project: increase speed, improve quality, reduce cost, hopefully improve customer value as well. And maybe the thing that's a bit different is this eliminate waste. And that's what I want to focus on a little more in a moment. But it's all about taking a customer perspective. If I'm a client of the process that you're going to automate, what does good look like, and what should the process be like, and can we make it smarter, better, faster? That's really the questioning that I'm trying to get across. So talking about waste. So waste are activities that the customer is not willing to pay for, like you're producing defects or producing too much. Waiting, and sometimes waiting can also be, of course, internal between departments. Customer doesn't really care if you're automating something or if you're typing it in manually, but of course, as an employee, you would care, because you didn't go to college or university to do manual data entry often. And then the bottom row, so transportation is basically when information moves. And I'll skip one and I'll talk about motion. Motion is when people move. I hope that is clear enough. And then of course, inventory is anything that's sitting, waiting for the customer to ask for it, or waiting for the maybe an employee to start processing it. You can also have an inventory of emails or an inventory of invoices that need to be processed. And then excessive processing is, yeah, like the there's an expression, I think it's called cold blading in English, but let's just do what is needed, and let's not over polish it or over engineer everything. And if you picked up on that, the first letters of these words, or all these words, mean downtime, which is hopefully an easy word to remember as these types of wastes. This may have been a little bit fast, but I have a page of examples, and the reason to pay attention is also we're going to do a quiz, and I'm going to show you a process in a moment, which is an HR recruitment process. And the idea is in the quiz, it will be to identify these types of waste. So again, you see these 8 types, spelling downtime and defects. I hope it's self-explanatory. You have to understand that lean originates from a manufacturing environment. And what we're trying to do here is say, well, it also works in an office environment, because most of the automations that you will be working on are in an office environment, right? And a defect like missing information, so I cannot complete my activity. I have worked, like I go to overproduction. I've worked in banks where we produce reports that nobody uses, right? And you go like, well, why can't we stop it? Yes, let's stop it. Waiting time is hopefully self-explanatory. I already spoke about non-utilized talent. It's often nowadays, or maybe I should say differently. When I started my career, I was a finance analyst and I was just typing over data because that's just what you did. Now people come from university and they go like, well, I didn't study to do this, right? And I think that that's the right attitude, really. So trying to, and this is a great opportunity to identify opportunities for automation, right? So transportation, as I said, like moving information, moving goods, like carrying paper around to the office. Inventory, having a stack of paper on a desk is a great example of inventory. And then motion is actually the employees moving around, right? But also think about clicks. How many clicks on a website to get somewhere, right? So if you're building a website, that's probably also something to take into account. I think Steve Jobs always had this idea when he came up with the iPod. Everything should be accessible in 3 clicks, and I think those are rules that make things efficient. And then excessive processing. I was talking about cold plating before. We've worked in the US for a government agency that they had I think 59 questions for an employee onboarding process. And you wonder, well, what do you really need all these 59 pieces of information because to start processing somebody's background check, really? And those are good examples of where I think you can question, right? It's not, again, that's the main thing. Just challenge in a constructive way if the process, if you're actually working on the right process, right? And if the process should be improved first. And other thing though is sometimes you find you're automating something and to solve a problem, and the problem can be simple, like we want to reduce cost or we want to create capacity, but sometimes it's also good to figure out what is actually the real problem. And I give you an example because people tend to jump to conclusions, right? For instance, there's a lot of complaints in a hotel about the room service. The food is arriving and it's cold. Well, it's easy to blame the kitchen or the waiters. But it's also good to ask that question, why? Well, there's a long waiting time. But then why is that long waiting time happening? Well, the elevators are busy. Well, why are the elevators busy? Well, we had to run extra laundry runs, right? Well, why then? Well, we ran out of detergent. Like so we needed to go to the shop and buy extra washing powder. And the reason is we basically didn't reorder in time. So we didn't reorder laundry detergent in time, and now the elevators are being used too often, and room service doesn't get to the room in time. So you see that the problem you're trying to solve might be different than what you think at first value, right? And this is why I would like to show you a video, because this is not an artificial problem. This happens everywhere. And the video I'm going to show you is the Jefferson Memorial in Washington, D.C., where they were, well, listen to yourself, but they were painting and painting and painting this memorial because it kept getting dirty. And with this cliffhanger, I'll try to switch and see if this works for you. If you don't hear sound, let me know, then I need to do something, but it should work. Just go back to the start. Here we go.
Years ago, the stone exterior was deteriorating at the Jefferson Memorial in Washington, D.C., a popular monument in the United States. Repairing the stone or painting over the worn areas was too expensive, so park rangers turned to root cause analysis and started asking why.
Why was the stone deteriorating?
High-powered sprayers were being used to wash the memorial every 2 weeks.
Why were high-powered washings needed every 2 weeks?
Because of bird droppings.
Asking why stopped because it seemed the cause was found. Workers put nets around the building, but they were unsightly, and the birds found ways around them. So it was back to the drawing board, or the 5 whys.
Why are there so many birds?
They come to feed on spiders.
Why are there so many spiders?
They feed on insects at night.
Why are there so many insects?
They're attracted by lights that shine on the memorial at night.
With a new cause found, questions stopped, and a plan was created to reduce the amount of time the memorial spent in the spotlight at night, and it worked. The insects were reduced by 90%, and with the root cause removed, the excessive cleaning was no longer needed. An unexpected benefit was a cost savings realized by using less electricity. This highlights how root cause analysis can involve trial and error, and how the 5 whys isn't always limited to exactly 5 questions. Read more about root cause analysis and the Jefferson Memorial story at the link below.
All right. So I hope you found that insightful. And this is where we then... Oh, I need to go quickly through this again. And this is where we then go into, okay, now I've identified what is wrong, I've identified types of waste, but how do I go forward with improving this process? And there is an opportunity, well, how do I say, there's a set of questions you can ask yourself, and it's the method is called ECRS, eliminate, combine, rearrange, simplify. And it's a simple set of questions. And what we do, when we do process redesign, we actually have these questions embedded in our tool set, where we basically, for every process step, as we're automating it, we're asking these questions. Can we eliminate some of the inputs? Can we eliminate some of the tasks that are being done? Do we need to do everything in sequence, or can we do a lot like in one go, and not have different people be responsible for different activities? Sometimes there's also an opportunity to do parallel processing, like think about an approval workflow where you have 12 signatures in sequence, or maybe everybody gets an email to approve, and it makes it a bit faster. And then simplify, like can we reduce the amount of manual work? Can we create maybe standard templates to make it a bit easier? So like an example of daily practice we have. Like, of course, with UiPath document understanding, you can scan and interpret a lot of forms, right? And that's great. But sometimes just having a standard template, a standard Excel spreadsheet that everybody's using, you don't need to spend the effort on document understanding if you can get the data in an electronic structured way. So sometimes there's also these type of interventions that can go a long way, for the right business reasons. And some more examples. I already started giving examples, of course, but I gave you the example of the 59 fields in like for the new employee onboarding, where you probably could do with about a third of that. And then reduce handoffs I was mentioning, parallel processing I mentioned. Sometimes also co-location, like putting people together, or putting activities together in the same place. It can be a straightforward improvement. And then, as I said, can we create a web form? Can we create a template to capture information that to basically structure the inputs? Now, there was a lot of theory for you, and we managed to do that. What is it, in about 20 minutes? So now we're going to slowly move into the quiz. This is a real process that I have been looking at as part of an RPA project, and it's of course it's a recruitment process, but it can probably best described as a very manual HR process. And if you look through the process and you think about, okay, the candidate's sending a letter by email, and then we get that. We print 3 copies of it, then manually go into a system to match these open roles versus the applicants. Then we have the paper in front of us, so we review and we grade whether these candidates are great for the role or not. And then we enter the candidate names in a system, and of course humans are fallible, so they sometimes this issue, the name is not correct anymore. Okay, so then the HR manager gets the list of candidates. She goes and prints that out. And then once a week, we're looking at all these applications, talking about which are the right candidates. When do we interview these people? Can we schedule an interview? If the candidate is not a great match, then send an email. Now, finding the time slot for the interview sometimes involves a little bit back and forth email communication. Let's make sure the applicant has a copy of the job posting. send the CV by email to the manager, and then the manager conducts the interview, has to fill out a form. There's a decision on hiring or not, and then based on that, there's an email with the decision and an email to send your expenses, that if you came in for the interview, that you can get back your expenses. So now think again about downtime, all these factors that come in the way of a smooth and efficient and maybe a fast process. And yeah, this is where we move to the quiz, and I probably maybe I leave the screen open for a second while I hand over to Christina.
Yes, just a minute, so we'll make sure it's ready.
Yes.
Okay. So I think we should give let me first share the screen, and then I will say in chat, like how you can access the quiz room. Okay, so Lucky is already there. www.menti.com. It's easier to access from mobile, yes, and the code.
It's going to be in the chat. Yeah.
I will write the code. You can just copy paste the code if you didn't use the QR code that Eric had in his presentation.
Yes, I was
And,
maybe too fast.
We will move through all the 4 questions now. Yes, Eric?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay.
But let's wait for a second, because we have 5. I think now we're getting there. 5 people have managed to do this so far. Yes. All right. Is everybody ready?
Okay, now with the 5th, let's see.
Yeah.
So we have 16th in the session. Let's wait a bit more to see who else wants to join the quiz room. 16 minus us 3, so 13 people. Do you guys have problems in staying in the quiz room? Keep the browser open once you join. Okay. I think probably we can start. Is anybody else trying to access the quiz room and is not managing? Should we wait for anyone else? You can write me in chat. And of course, we will wait. Okay. Now we will start. So remember, guys, Menti is about answering fast to get more points. And you can see the first question here. You have 20 seconds. So it's about Alice who applies for jobs via website and also emails her resume to the HR. And how do you fit this into downtime? Okay. So shared opinions on this one. What do you have to say, Eric?
Well, she applies via the website and also email, so it's like double the effort, right? That's why it's overproduction. Yeah.
Okay, good explanation. Thank you. Okay, we'll go to the next question now. We'll see after each question this intermediate leaderboard, but the final leaderboard will be the important one. So now you can just see where you are faring against the others. But this changes after each question. So now Jitin is in the lead. Yeah, he is our question 1 winner, but the overall winner will be after question 4. Okay, question 2. And again, answer fast. HR proceeds to enter Alice's information in the company database manually, and typos are made. How do you classify this into downtime? Okay, that's a quick answer, quicker than the time.
Yeah.
And good answer, yeah. So it's a learning process. By question 4, you will have all correct. Okay, let's see the leaderboard now.
Oh la la. Some changes.
Not really. Yeah, we have a good runner-up, a strawberry runner-up. Okay, next question now. And the HR prints 3 copies of a resume and matches it to the open role in the organization. Classify this into downtime. I bet you're wondering who still prints resumes these days.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So it's overproduction and excessive processing. And you heard the planet as well.
You heard the trees, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Here is the change. The runner-up took the lead. Okay, it seems like this is like a course between Arstak and Jitin. Let's see who will be the winner now after the last question. Okay. Oh, wait. No. The HR decides to go and pick the printed resume. Do you think it can be classified into downtime? Shared opinions again, but with 3 people who voted right. Let's see the leaderboard. This is the final one, guys. So let's see. Okay. I don't know what's the real name. You can tell us in a chat and also DM me your email address, please, Arstak. So we can send you a UiPath swag voucher as a prize. Thank you for joining the quiz and answering Eric's questions.
Yeah. So if I, shall I like just wrap it up? Let me just see how I can share again. Here we go. I am trying to share, but I got stuck with my options.
You have like the black ribbon on the bottom of your Zoom screen.
Yeah, but normally yes, but now it is. If I enlarge it, it's back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so this is where we were. And what you see is, so we applied this downtime, and of course it's a bit, the visual is very, very busy, but we applied the downtime to all these steps. And again, this is a real exercise. This is a real process, as it was. We didn't create this for today. And as you see, it is worth looking at the process and at least identifying the possible issues, which can then help you drive a solution. And this is also what we did. So everything that's red, we killed. We stopped, maybe a nicer phrase. And then we came up with a web tool solution that is much more friendly. The paper printing is gone. And an additional benefit that we ended up is what you see here in the middle of the hiring manager review. Sometimes a candidate applies that's not a great fit for the role that we actually advertised, but there may be another role open, or there may be another role coming, and then the system could then reassign, or at least park that candidate for another opportunity. And hopefully when you look at this, you also see that a lot of this is much more streamlined and an interesting use of intelligent automation to make the process better for HR and a better experience for the candidate. And just on a personal note, I got a message from the HR director after doing this project, basically saying, Eric, thank you, because now finally my team can focus to do the work that they were supposed to do, rather than this whole circus of paper. And you can imagine if you print every resume 3 times, what a mess that could quickly become in an office environment. So again, the biggest benefit I always see from like the UiPath implementations is that people are being freed up of doing I'm inclined to say this, the stupid stuff, so they can actually add its value that they're supposed to bring, and that they're much more happy with to work on. So that's how this all comes together, right? So the improving processes helps the customer, in this case, arguably the client, the candidate, as well as the business with a better process. So thank you very much for that, and we can move to some questions now, if there are.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions for Eric, feel free just to unmute yourself or pop them in the chat.
I don't see the chat, but here we go.
So Eric, I'll maybe start off. There's a few things in there which I certainly want to keep in mind. I mean, root cause analysis, the 5 whys, that's well known. And I think this is very powerful if we make ourselves do it. But the other ones, like the acronyms like downtime or ECRS, what do you do to make sure you think about that every time you're assessing a process, and that you actually encourage your team to do the same?
Yeah, well, we have basically it's sort of a solution design document, and it's really an Excel spreadsheet, right, where we say, well, look at every process step, and there's a set of questions like how often is this done, where are the inputs coming from, and then what do we believe is the solution. But before getting there is these 4 questions, like this ECRS, like, can we eliminate this? Is this step really needed? Can we maybe combine some of these activities? Like do you want to send 3 emails, or can we send 1 email with the 3 questions? Rearrange, and that's quite often is, do we stop the process? Quite often that rearrange happens when today the process is waiting for an action to happen, and you can sometimes it's, can we not either have the question first before we start the work, or do the work and then have the final question or approval? So it's sometimes a resequencing just to make it a bit more, to make it smoother. Also, like if you're building an automation, you have to wait for something to happen to pick it up. Yes, it can be done, but it's often much more efficient if everything runs straight through. And then fourthly, the simplify or standardize question is, and this happens all the time, that particularly in the procure to pay area, where people send invoices, and of course invoices can be scanned, but sometimes it's internal departments that are sending things in all kinds of different formats, and having a web form for your suppliers, having even a spreadsheet again. So I don't want to propagate Excel here, but having a standard way how information comes in makes life so much easier. And quite often we never ask that question, right? So like I've come across a large Swiss bank, and where we were doing a project, and somebody was complaining, well, I always get this information in a spreadsheet and it's all over the place, and then I need to put it in my template, right? And this is not necessarily an automation example, but then we had them sit together, and the person was explaining the problem, and the person who sends that information every month goes like, why didn't you tell me? I would be happy to use your spreadsheet or use your template. And I think the example is not an automation example, but could be really applied in an automation scenario too, right? We often see that all information is in spreadsheets, and different departments have different spreadsheets, and sometimes just asking the question, hey guys, you would help us a lot by putting it in the same way, because we can make the automation faster, there will be less exceptions, and maybe even UiPath go like this, but even a reduction in license costs, because we don't have to do the document understanding licenses if we do it smarter, right? And yeah, that's and again, we ask those questions before we actually come to this end result of what should the automated process look like for this step. Yeah.
Good. So I guess the takeaway for me for that would be then, I guess all the RP businesses and COEs will have a template way of assessing a process, like the volumes, the frequencies, the inputs, the outputs, and free text, where is it involved, all of these sort of things. But maybe in those sort of template approaches, we need to have something at the start, maybe a page before you complete this, you must complete this.
Yeah.
Like, why do we do this? Who's using this?
Yeah.
What do they do with it?
Yeah, and as I said before, I started the presentation. Let's not automate what people do today, but try to understand why we're doing this process, and automate based on that objective, as opposed to what today is happening.
Yeah, and I think it's good to then, from what you've said, to actually do that right at the start, because I think sometimes we have the experience that we're partway through automating something, and we discover something we should have. If only I'd known that at the start, I would have approached this differently, and that's waste of our time, waste of our customers' time. Yeah, excellent. Good. Sorry, I hogged that. Anyone else like to ask a question?
Don't be shy. We always have this rule, there's no stupid questions, right? And I know this is being recorded, so if you feel that your question is shouldn't be recorded, you can let us know too. Yeah.
So we've got a question in the chat here. How much can redesign impact efficiency gain?
Yeah, it's hard to quantify that, like in a number, but I think automation has the potential to run a process about 10 times faster than a human does, right? So, but automating the right process also reduces your error rates. Maybe it may become a more tailored solution. So some of the benefits are hard to quantify in terms of efficiency, because you can automate the as-is process and it can be very fast. But as we said before, if your outputs are incorrect, you just produce more incorrect outputs, or faster incorrect outputs. And I think it's basically it's also a fit for purpose metric, as opposed to only an efficiency metric. But doing the things right and doing the things faster together will have an improvement in financial terms, in employee satisfaction, and in customer satisfaction.
Yeah. Does that answer your question, Jeannie?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. I remember reading a quote from Bill Gates that says technology can magnify the efficiency or the inefficiency of the process, which kind of lines up quite nicely with what you're saying in terms of understanding the process, the current state, mapping out all the current constraints and bottlenecks before throwing automation at it, because you can magnify the inefficiency of the current state.
Yeah. I could give one example where, this is going back a little while, where we had one customer who was asking us to look at automating quite a number of processes that they had, which were to do with handling customers who were building up debt, and it could be for various reasons, and there were various triggers to why a customer would get a call on this. And it was really worthwhile to go and spend time with the customer, talk to them about why these processes happened. And at the end of the day, what we built was we didn't automate all of those processes. We just automated something that was common to all of those processes, a triage process that went through all a flag was hit, triage went through all the customers' accounts. The automation would do that, and then would give almost like an exception report. So we found that 70% of the time was wasted in looking at a customer account where there was no problem. And so the robot found all of those and said, no problem there. And on the remaining 30%, the robot would say, there is a problem here, and this is what it is. And then the human with the judgment comes in and deals with targeted issues, so that their time isn't wasted. They know before they call the customer what the problem is, what they can do about it, and then they do what humans are good at. So that way, we saved, according to our customer, 35 FTEs were wasting their time. But it took couple of days workshop to thrash all of this out. And then it was relatively easy to build, but the customer to this day benefits from it on a daily basis. If we hadn't done that, we would have inefficiently partly automated about 10 or 12 different processes. It would have been and it wouldn't have been satisfactory for anybody. So I think, Eric, when I asked you to come and give this presentation, it's that sort of thing that really resonates with me. It's the time invested up front that makes the big difference.
Yeah, true. Yes, no, clear, right? And yeah, it's I'm happy that we can share this. There's 15 people on that on the day that ChatGPT 4 got launched. So instead of spending your evening looking at ChatGPT, you're spending it with us. So thank you very much for that as well. Yeah.
Janie, you've had your hand up again.
Yes, I just have one more question. So in the intake design phase, what kind of background or experience would be really helpful to help identify like the top opportunities for automation? Is it helpful to have the development experience, or is it just, hey, if you have a Lean Six Sigma process improvement background, that alone is sufficient? I'm just trying to figure like what would be the perfect person who could help identify and vet opportunities.
The answer is a little bit of both, right? I mean, yeah, ideally a little bit of a multi-talent, but multi-talent is often just a multi-interested person, right? So if all you want to do is develop and what is done today, and you don't ask those questions, yeah, that is, we're trying to coach people to not do that, right? In the end, like a lot of our developers also have an interest to be like an RPA analyst.
Right.
And I think the main differentiator, I'm not sure, Jean, if it's answering your question really, but is you want people to be aware that there is a client and that there's a business that you're doing this for, and it's not just an automation project. And it's that awareness, I think, that's the most important, because people that have Lean Sigma backgrounds, they don't need to learn to be a developer to ask the right questions around like, what do I need to look like what is automatable or not? And also, I don't think, and hopefully that came across today, a lot of the process improvement tools are not so complicated, and it's just a matter of having an interest. And then of course today 15 people had to look at this, and then it's hopefully this brings a little bit of an awareness and let people at least consider, hey, do we really need to do this? Do we really need to print all of this? Do we really need all these signatures? Is there a way to standardize? And I hope that to inspire that we ultimately deliver automations that are more fit for purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great.
So it's maybe not the perfect answer to your question, but it's
Appreciate it. But would having experience or understanding of how the development side works help?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, because you are more. It gives you a bigger base to evaluate from, right? I mean, like he, like don't want to praise him too much here, but he comes in with that both those skill sets. So he knows what can be done in process mining and communications mining and document understanding and a few other UiPath tools, and then he goes like, well, how can I apply that to this particular process, right? But it's not, again, Jeannie, it's not just, well, we have all these product features and let's do it. Well, but it's more like, how can this help make the process better, and how can it help automate it? And also asking the question sometimes to the business, have you thought about doing it this way, right? And I think that's where having the technical background, but also having a little bit of the courage to speak up and ask those questions, right? And there's also an environment that needs to be there, or that you may need to create. But I think being aware of the technical capabilities is massively important. And they as you like half a year ago, when sorry to make a reference to ChatGPT again, but half a year ago that didn't exist, and now you can do so many more things, and being aware like that maybe like ChatGPT 4 can create a visualization of like you have a manual and you turn it into a visualization. That's a very interesting capability, right? And chatbots are like as a tool become a whole new thing. So, and I think just being aware of these capabilities help you to provide better solutions and ask better questions.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I think another thing that's come out of this for me, Eric, is never to think it's rude to ask why. Sometimes you think you might be challenging your customer, but actually asking why is very productive.
Yeah. Well, we did it all when we were a child. We were asking why all the time to our parents, right? So then somehow we unlearned often, right? But yeah,
great. Time for another question, if anyone has one.
Rick has a question, I think, about.
Does Rick have one? Sorry, I've not seen it yet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Rick, I was asked, is there a typical point during process assessment where you try to evaluate opportunities for improving of the as-is process?
We do it, and I show the process map where we have basically you do the diagnose and then the design, and in that design we do it. But it's basically first you analyze the current process, right? And it's you want to know the as-is process, and then essentially between having done the process assessment of what is there before you go in building the solution design document, that's really where you have this I call it activity, right? This thinking and this discussion, because and we also sometimes have internal discussions because maybe it's during the creation of the design document, but it is before you start coding. That's for sure. Yeah.
Great. Hopefully, Rick, that answered your question. Great. Well, again, I really want to thank Eric very much for that presentation. A lot of food for thought, and I know I'm going to note down a couple of those acronyms and actually try and see if we can embed that in the right place in our processes and have that sort of questioning mentality.